All right. What's up, guys? I hope you're doing well. James here from jamesdforsythe.com and talking a little bit more about the FedNow service, right? So basically, there are seven, at least as the Fed is kind of proposing, use cases as of right now, right? And this is one of the things to where it's kind of fluid, where where FedNow is coming out in phases to begin with. And so it's kind of like here are the seven that they have so far, and they may do more in the future when they add more kind of, we'll say, functionality, right? Because that's something they're talking about is basically just focusing on account to account, and then bill pay is kind of their main focus. But these are going to be more like the general use cases that it could be used for. And they even explicitly say, in a more or less direct quote, that it's supposed to be use case agnostic, right? So basically, it's kind of just supposed to be a service that works regardless of what you're using it for. Obviously, if you're using it for like the actual purpose of what it's for, like instant payments, and that kind of thing, right? So with that being said, we're going to head over to a screen share from one of the papers you can find on their website. Um, right, and so basically, what FedNow, if this is the first video you've seen on it, is basically it's a service from the Federal Reserve that is going to be giving financial institutions of supposedly all sizes the opportunity to develop and offer instant payment solutions that provide flexibility, speed, and efficiency to their individual and business customers, right? And so this is one thing that basically kind of relates it to a central bank digital currency, or could, or at least is relevant. And it's kind of an analogy that is worthy of drawing, I guess I should say. Um, and you really kind of see this with how the Fed is basically going to be outsourcing most of the actual, they're basically just providing the service, right? And then basically allowing or wanting the institutions themselves to basically innovate and create their own products or whatever off of that, right? And so it's basically just the service, and that's it, right? And so, and you see this in kind of the little infographic, a springboard for innovation. So the Fed Now service provides a platform for innovation that banks, credit unions, service providers, and others can use to innovate and offer a variety of instant payment use cases for their customers, right? It's going to be released in phases and can be used for a lot of things, right? So, that being said, the kind of two biggest ones and the two main ones that they're really trying to focus on, because the first phase is basically just having it be functional, and then pretty much just focusing on A to A, account to accounting, and then bill pay in a way, which is C2B, right? Consumer to business, right? And so versions of account to account kind of transactions in a way is what they call me to me. Basically, individuals can instantly transfer money between accounts at different financial institutions, including funding a newly opened account, right? So it's two individuals transferring money between their accounts. Like, that's pretty much typical transaction. You don't get much more simple than that. Um, and then there's prepaid cards. So individuals can fund reloadable cards without the wait. So I guess it's much like a Visa prepaid card you can get, like sometimes like your grandparents give you for Christmas or whatever the case may be, that sort of thing. Um, Mobile wallet funding and defunding. So individuals can fund or cash out accounts without the wait. Investment account management. So individuals can instantly move funds from their financial institution, your bank, to their brokerage account at another institution. So you no longer really have to do like the ACH transactions. That's what I do for my brokerage stuff, just because it's the easiest one, I guess. But you don't have to do like that 3-day wait or whatever it happens to be. If you read the fine print, it's like depending on, I guess, the institution. Um, it just depends on how long it takes, and then on your bank and that sort of thing. The whole clearing process, I guess. There's also corporate cash pooling is another form of ADA, right? And so corporations can consolidate funds into a single account for payroll or other purposes, right? And so I'm not sure. I'm assuming it just makes this easier. To be completely honest, I'm rather ignorant on corporate accounting, so it's not something I've had to do. Um, so I don't know how much of a big difference that would be, but I don't know if it's just one of those. It's helpful in terms of what the service does in general, and it just happens to also apply to corporate cash pooling. So basically, the whole instant transfer of funds, right? And then to move on to consumer to business, with the example of bill pay. So basically, you'd be able to pay your bills, such as loans, utilities, and more, immediately, right? And so they say this can help people and companies avoid late fees and better manage cash flow. And so, like, I guess it's one of those, like, thinking about your utilities, like, it's not like you're just not going to have the utility bills, right? And so I guess you're not, with the FedNow service, you would most likely not have to deal with like the holding period, I guess, or that sort of thing, to where you know how your bank puts like card holds and stuff when you buy gas, it takes out a certain amount, and then when basically whenever it settles, then it gets drawn out of your account, that sort of thing. Another thing that I've seen kind of related to this is like essentially having you're paying your bills instantly. So like you're paying your water bill or your electric bill as you're using it, right? Now, whether that they would basically take that down to a rate. So maybe instead of kind of you're paying your, say, electric bill once a month, you can pay it more or less instantly. So I don't know if that would be like what kind of rate they would do that as. Would it be like per day, per hour, per minute? Like, I don't know. That would be something that might be a case by case basis, depending on the utility company, where you are, whatever. But that's just what comes to mind when I see that, right? Another version of this would be e-invoicing. So billers can send a request for payment to their customers through the FedNow service, something we touched on a little bit, I think, in yesterday's video. Basically, the request for payment. Consumer or customers can respond by initiating a credit transfer through an end user interface offered by the financial institution. The payment will include the applicable remittance detail from the request, which facilitates posting of the transaction, right? And so the FedNow service, more or less, is kind of just a messaging service, at least from the standpoint of the end user, it seems. Um, or basically, it's like an app on your phone from what I've seen it described as. And it's basically like you can say, hey, send a message to your bank, or credit union, whatever. And excuse me, basically they're like, hey, I want to send this much to this person, whatever. The Fed has their own video on this, basically, as they pretty much always do. It's kind of like the animated version or whatever with graphics and stuff, with like a business owner buying, um, basically supply. I think they use the example of coffee beans or something, basically, and how that would work through the service itself, where like you send a message to your bank basically goes through the service to talk to the I guess the seller, to their financial institution, and they basically be like, hey, yes, we'll take the payment, and then messages and stuff. I'll go through it. There's a pretty decent graphic, that I found that basically goes through step by step. And so we'll go through that, in the next couple days, just to kind of get it explicit on how exactly it's working and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's one of the use cases. Another one could be peer to peer, which would be like paying family and friends. I've seen the example of like splitting dinner and basically how you could do that instantly, and then pay individuals for services. So consumers can pay instantly for a variety of on demand services such as babysitting or dog walking. Okay. Then there's business to business, on demand payment. So businesses can free up working capital by paying suppliers upon receipt of products or services. So I guess it's more or less what I was talking about with the coffee beans and what the Fed's video talks about. And then there's e-invoicing again. Businesses can send an e-invoice and a request for payment, and same thing, but business to business. Consumer to business, C2B. Is that twice? Hold on, maybe there's only six. Consumer to business, bill pay, and then there's another consumer to business. Okay. I guess just different examples of consumer to business. But there's home service payment. And so that's like if landscaping or like you have a contractor come over, you could pay for it immediately, that sort of thing. E-commerce, so I guess Amazon gets instant payments, that sort of thing. Anything where you're purchasing goods online. And then there's to consumer, which would be like one-time payments. They give the example of like insurance payouts and then rebate claims that can basically be paid instantly. I guess refunds could also be a part of there as well. And then also immediate payroll, where you're getting paid on a, I guess, daily basis. I've actually seen some places start doing this already. I just recently came back from out of town for a work trip, and I just noticed a bunch of, I think it was only fast food restaurants to where I saw it. But basically they're offering like daily paychecks in a way where you get paid every day, right? And it basically as a way to try to lower turnover. Um, I don't know if I just think differently than kind of the demographic that works there. I mean, I worked at Sonic in high school, so there's that. And so I guess I can kind of see it to where people just can't wait the 2 weeks. But it's also like, I mean, if you can't wait the 2 weeks, you can figure out other things to do. Like even if it's just like flipping stuff at a garage sale or whatever. Um, but that's off topic. That sort of thing could also be possible. Another thing that the instant payroll reminds me of, and seeing the daily payments at the fast food restaurants, or daily paychecks, I guess you could say, um, is when I was reading, I forget the name of the book, but it was about the German hyperinflation in 1920, one or two, somewhere in there. I don't remember completely off the top of my head, but the hyperinflation of the Deutschmark, right? And basically, where employees were getting paid like twice a day because the currency was inflating so much, and basically, so they could pay groceries before the prices went up again that same day. Something along those lines. Now, obviously, with the example of the fast food restaurants today in the South and in the American South. At least that's where I've seen it. Basically, obviously, that's not happening right now, um, but it's just something that reminded me of. And then also, I guess finally, there's government and municipal payments, which basically it's like tax payments to government or municipal entities. They can then make payments such as tax refunds and other time sensitive payments to businesses or individuals. And so, I don't know. It's one of those, at least they explicitly say they're taking it out of your account too, where basically you're immediately paying taxes, but then it's also like there's no buffer between the government just going in there and taking um, as much money as they want, more or less. I mean, I guess you could argue they could raise taxes. Um, for me, it's more of a time issue that comes to mind right now. It's like, now at least like that if they pass legislation or whatever, there's a buffer, or if they try to do something to where it's like they increase your taxes and they just start kind of taking money out of your account in a way. Now it's more of like, okay, you kind of wait until, at least I guess personally, till the end of the year or whatever your tax schedule is, because I know you can change it depending on what, if you're using some form of like corporate entity in a way. Um, and basically there's a set schedule now, right, to where you pay it like once a year or whatever, um at least for personal taxes. And then, but if they can do it instantly, it's kind of like a, they can just go in there and take it sort of thing, which I guess you could argue they can do anyway. But it's like there just seems to be more of a, at least a time buffer now. And that's kind of my biggest thing that's coming to mind with this whole instant payments thing. It's like, yeah, you think of all the positives and stuff from being able to pay bills instantly. There's no holding period. There's no backup of like interbank settlements, that sort of thing, or supposedly. That's one of their selling points. But it's also like, okay, but that's a positive, but can also be a negative depending on how you're kind of looking at it, right? It's like basically you lose that like time buffer to deal with stuff because not only, yes, there's situations to where, say, like a card hold or whatever can be misleading when you look at your bank account. I'm actually going through an example of that right now because I did a video not too long ago basically about like how all my excess savings or whatever, however you want to define that, are basically I'm rolling them over into 4 week T bills or other forms of T bills. I like kind of spreading it out. Um, but, anyways, and by doing that, um, when you do the when you buy the bills or whatever, there's like in my account, it shows the money's still there, even though I know that payment's not out yet. I mean, the auction date is today anyway. So that's I don't know. I probably shouldn't go too far in depth with that in this video. And also just I'm playing around and playing with fire, trying to learn. But anyways, leaving that there, the FedNow service, there are 7 total use cases, I guess 6 because they have consumer to business on here twice. So just different use cases for it. But anyways, whatever. I'm going to leave this one here. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you on the next one.